Hey guys, how's it going? Well, last week I did a video on the top 5 things I like about living in a van. Today I'm going to do the top 5 things I don't like. Okay, well, switch my view here. I'm trying to give you something interesting to look at. I'm at a SkyTrain station here. It's the way we commute here in Vancouver, BC. And I don't know, hopefully there's people walking by and you can do some people watching or something. So, top 5 things I don't like about living in a van. I don't know that I'm going to go in a specific order, because there's some things I don't know how I can kind of rank them. So let's just think of one thing at a time. Well, one thing I definitely don't like is I don't like to deal with a urine issue. How I do things is I don't have a porta potty, or I shouldn't say porta potty. I don't have like one of those camping cassette toilets. I don't have a bucket with a lid on it. What I basically just do is I just use a large detergent bottle, holds about 5 liters, and fill it, and then when it's getting full, if it's close to full, I just bring it to a washroom inside a backpack, and then I empty it. Simple as that. So that's one thing I don't like. It's really just not a very pleasant experience. When you live in an apartment or something with a real flush toilet, it exits your body and it's in the water, and then it's gone when you flush it. So living in a van, you got to deal with human waste. Now you might say, oh, what about going number 2? Well, I don't ever do that in my van. I don't ever have to worry about that, because I just do number 2 in like a Starbucks or Tim Hortons, or wherever I am that there's a toilet. I have myself a hot beverage, and then that usually aids in the facilitation of that sort of waste removal. Anyway, so yeah, I've never had a problem with having an emergency in the bathroom. I do have a Lugaboo style toilet seat that I can use in an emergency, but I don't have a bucket, so I would have to use a milk crate, and it would be a bit awkward, but I think I can do it if I need to. But so far, no problems. Okay, so that's one thing I don't like about living in a van. Another thing, which is something a friend of mine has brought up to me that is interesting, and also I think Static Camper Van touched on this, as somebody mentioned, is, I could have that wrong somehow, I'll have to double check on the video later, is when you're living in a van, basically the easiest way to save money is to pay down a mortgage. Because if you, paying rent is money out the window, but when you pay money into a mortgage, like for a condo or a house even, you're paying money into something which creates equity. And that means over a long period of time, you can save a large amount of money when you sell the place. Now, of course, this all depends on if you sell for more than you paid for it, if the place is in good repair, all these things. There's a whole bunch of factors. But in an ideal situation, when you own a condo, and if you can sell it later and you make more money than what you paid, you're going to be making a lot more money than you would save if you just put money into a bank account. Especially in Vancouver, because the costs of housing in Vancouver keep going up and up and up. And even if it, even in the 2008 crash, it went down a little bit, but then within 2 or 3 months, it's going up again. So the cost of real estate in Vancouver is such that it's a smart investment to invest in real estate, because your money is gonna work well for you, and you're gonna get that money back way more than what you put into it. And that is something I've been thinking about lately, and maybe not in terms of me living in a condo, but I could possibly buy one just to rent it out, just for the fact of having that equity happening. So there's some stuff rolling around in my head on that, and I'm going to continue to cogitate on that. So a third thing I don't like about living in a van is, especially because I live in a small van, you have to spend most of your time outside of it. I cannot be in my van for more than 4 hours when I'm awake. It will drive me a little bit crazy. So that means I'm in coffee shops a lot, or I'm at the library, or I'm in a restaurant, or I'm in public a lot. Especially if I have the day off. I mean, I'm out of the van like, 12 hours out of the day. And that's just the way it has to be for me in order to be able to be in a small van, because I just can't stay in here for a large amount of time without going a little crazy. So definitely a negative side of living in a van is the amount of time that you're spending outside of the van, and just in public in general. It's like sometimes it's nice just to go back and relax and be able to shut out the world. And when you're in public, there's all kinds of things happening. There's people talking loudly beside you. Maybe someone's annoying you by the way they eat or whatever. Some kids are loud, whatever. I mean, it's just the way things are. And you have to accept that that's the way it is. And, don't be grumpy about it, because you're kind of putting yourself in that situation. So no one's to blame, really. All right, the fourth thing I'm going to mention that is definitely a negative part of living in a van is the weather. Whatever weather it is outside, that is going to have an effect on your comfort. And when it's winter, you're going to be cold. There's no way around it. When you're in an apartment, you have your heat on basically all the time. You come in and it's warm. You wake up in the morning and it's warm. You're always warm. In a van, you wake up and if you're out of propane, you're cold because your heater's off. And a lot of people don't even have a heater on during a night who live in a van. They just run without it. And that's their choice. So you're going to be cold from time to time in a van. There's no way around it. Even say I've been out of the van all day and it's like 9 o'clock at night and it's, winter and it's like -5 Celsius. What basically I have to do is I start my propane heater, keep all my heavy winter jacket on, and then after about 5 or 10 minutes it starts getting warm in the van, then I can take my jacket off. So that's kind of like a negative thing, is just having to deal with turning the heat on, waiting till things warm up. But another way to look at it is, in the olden days, that's what everybody had to do. You start a fire and it'll warm up the place, but it's not going to happen instantly. In this day and age, we're so, I don't know if I want to use the word spoiled, but we're so used to the convenience of having electric heat that's always on that we're never cold, unless you go outside, of course. So yeah, that's kind of a negative thing about living in a van. Another thing that's, I guess I'll call this number one, like I said, again, this is not ranked. Negative thing about living in a van is all the kind of little things that they kind of add up, like you got to get water, you got to dump your pee. If you have to get mail from someplace that you don't live at, you got to figure that out. Where you're going to park. Having a very small amount of area to store food, and limitation in what kind of food you can make. These things they kind of all just add together just to make it not as an easy life as living in an apartment or a condo or a house. there's just some things you have to deal with, these inconveniences, and that's just the way it is. But when I consider that dealing with those inconveniences is saving me $1,000 plus a month, it's very tolerable, and it's not that big of a deal, but it should be mentioned. The final thing I'm going to mention is just kind of like an extra, that is the challenge of living in a van, is not having access to internet at all times. I'm kind of an internet guy. I don't watch TV. I haven't had cable since the year 2000, and I'll probably never get it again. I'm not interested in mainstream television. But there's a lot of stuff that I like to watch on YouTube that is very interesting to me, and including all the van dwelling stuff. And, you know, you have to really watch your consumption of video when you're living in a van, because you're on data or whatever, and video uses a lot of data. Now, there are, of course, ways around it, and I am going to look into that with a Wi-Fi repeater and all that stuff, and I'm going to look into that in the next while. That'll be my next major project. But even having said that, you're still going to have to park somewhere where there's a Starbucks or McDonald's or library or something where you can be relatively close to Wi-Fi, that, you know, something that's creating the Wi-Fi signal that you can use to for entertainment. So it's not like you can just park in your spot and then automatically have Wi-Fi coming at you. It just doesn't work that way. You know, there may be the odd spot, if you're lucky, you can find that you can have Wi-Fi at night, and then, you know, just watch YouTube or whatever until it's time to go to sleep. But that is the exception, and it's a bit of an anomaly. So it's kind of like a negative part of van dwelling as well. However, like I said, it is fixable, and I'm going to look into that and see what I can do to rectify that. Alright guys, well, there you have it. 5 things that are not so great about living in a van. Thanks for watching. Take care.